And we are live.
All right.
Hello, greetings, everybody. So we
Hello,
know
hello.
Hello, good
how this
evening.
works. So we're going to give everybody an opportunity to jump on in to the throne room where we're having our barbershop conversation. This is the space that we have created to be able to purge from our issues, heal from our wounds, and find rest so that we might be able to transform into that which we have been called and created to become, and that is a royalty. I'm excited this evening because I get to have not just one of my brothers, but two of my brothers who are very near and dear to me. They have their own very personal, phenomenal stories. And so this evening, we are going to address the mental health of our men. And so this is going to be in celebration of Mental Health Awareness Month. We're going to have this much needed conversation. And so we're going to ask you to like and share, everybody. And let us welcome Brother Jerome Kidd, and of course, number one brother, numero uno, my side kid, Brother Ned White from Pure Care Ministries. So welcome, guys, and y'all take it from here. Brother Ned, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I don't know about that intro, but I'm feeling good.
You
sound
good.
Sound like you were trying to make up for something. I don't know.
I know. Okay, y'all. So let me just put this out there. I did tell my brother I was gonna call him this week, and I did last week. Okay, last week I didn't. I didn't even get a chance to call him. And then on top of that, I said I was gonna do something, I didn't. So I feel real fake right now. I was supposed to come through, and I ain't come through, brother, like I was supposed to.
You
so I'm
were
gonna take all of that.
In a celebrating mood last week. I know that your daughter's birthday, and so I know that she had a blessed time. I saw the photos, so yes. I'm excited that you guys got a chance to celebrate life last week. So I'll give you a pass.
Well, thank you for the grace and the mercy and the forgiveness to be extended.
Absolutely.
Well, we also have here Brother Jerome Kidd. Brother Jerome, introduce yourself to the people. Tell them who you are. Let us know a little bit about you.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jerome Kidd, and I am, first of all, blessed by the best.
That's right.
And glad to be here this evening with my brother Ned, and my sister, Monica. We kind of became associated with each other way back on April the 6th of 2019.
Yes.
And that's when we were attending a training for Stations of Hope, as sponsored by Healing Communities USA.
Right.
That's right.
My understanding is you had the national director here a week or two ago.
2 weeks ago.
Spoken into all of our lives, Dr. Harold Dean Trulier, who I met when I was 19 years old. And he patterned a lifestyle for me. He really has helped me get in touch with who I am and to begin to see myself as God sees me.
Awesome.
So other than that, I mean, I could certainly start at birth, but that's quite a few years ago. I think we need to fast forward.
Yeah. Let's fast forward. It out.
Well, I'm a product of two farm parents who grew up without running water and without electricity from the state of Virginia. They met in Princeton, New Jersey, where I was born when JFK was still president. So
I can't
give it time perspectives.
That's right. That's close enough.
There you go.
They moved us from Princeton to Hamilton, where my father had constructed our family home that we still own, and raised us there in the Hamilton Township public school system until I was about 14 years old. My father was a custodian at the Lawrenceville Prep School. And as such, I had an opportunity to take the SSAT, the Secondary Schools Admissions Test, when I was 13. Well, I apparently did well enough on that test to be admitted for a free ride through the Lawrenceville School due to my father's employment there. And I imagine due to a couple of the scores I got on those tests.
Right.
So after that, we left Lawrenceville and went on to Drew University up in Madison, New Jersey, where I matriculated and earned my BA. And as for the rest of those initials back there, I only did that for this occasion because I really don't wear my initials. I don't think they matter a whole lot, but for this particular instance, since we're celebrating Mental Health Awareness Month, I wanted to call people's attention to the 2 peer certifications that I do carry, those being the CRSP and the CPRS, Certified Recovery Support Practitioner and Certified Peer Support, CPRS. Peer support something. I have to go look it up. I'm sorry. It falls out of your head when you need
to tell y'all he educated y'all.
He got a resume.
The know-how. It's all there. So
all either one of those do is to tell us as peers who have experienced mental illness, who may have experienced addiction, it tells us what not to do.
Right.
So that we don't trigger, so that we don't make matters worse for someone else while we're trying to help them. Because most of us don't know how to help. And it kind of, even though we might be eager because of our own experiences to reach out and help, you can actually harm if you don't help in a correct way. So that's all those 2 certifications have done. I think it's like 108 hours or something between the 2 of them, but it has helped me understand how to reach out and support those people who might be experiencing a mental health episode or think that they might be, that might need an evaluation. And of course, those who have had an emergency. As we go forward, you'll find out that I've been in a couple of those situations where I have worked as a support assistant to those people who have just fortunately survived an overdose attempt or survived a suicide attempt. Wow. So I've spent quite a bit of time with people who are right on the edge, trying to help them get their footing again on solid ground.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing that tonight.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to being able to share and maybe help someone.
Well, as always, everybody, if there is anyone who is on this line and they are experiencing any thoughts of suicide or having any thoughts of harming, please reach out to someone. Know that you are not alone. We are here with you. We want to make sure that you are well. And there are other resources that you can go into and partner with to be able to help you if you need help. And we will post that number and that information in our chat. But please feel free to connect with someone. We're here to walk with you in that. With that being said, are y'all ready?
Yes,
ready.
Y'all ready to take the cover off?
Let's pull it off.
All right, so here we are. We're having this conversation, a much needed conversation, a conversation that is really considered in my eyes and a lot of people in my inner circle's eyes as taboo, which is to talk about mental health, specifically pertaining to men, Black men. It is often overlooked. It is under put out there. It's not observed in the way that it's supposed to be. It's not acknowledged to the capacity that it should be. In fact, it is so under acknowledged that we see it funnel off into our systems, law enforcement, in our education systems. We see the inability of people to be able to really assess and handle and really help people who are dealing with mental illness. They oftentimes confuse that for other things. And so I'm eager to have this conversation and begin this conversation with you guys. But before we do, I wanted to just put this out there in general, that oftentimes people think that when we come to spaces like these, whereby we talk about mental health, we're talking about a specific person or group of people who exhibit a particular behavior. But mental health really impacts each and every one of us. That mental health can look like me sitting in a classroom and feeling overwhelmed because there is a lot of work before me. Mental health could look like me sitting before a book and reading because I need to work on myself. Mental health expands across many sectors. It doesn't just hit women and women who are emotional. It hits young women, it hits children, it hits babies. Mental health is something that is much broader and much deeper than a lot of people really want to acknowledge. And so this platform today in our throne room, I really want to take a specific turn to what that might look like, specifically towards the male sector, our Black men. But I do not want us to lose sight of the fact that mental health is not just for one particular group of people, associated for one particular thing because it's diagnosed by a particular doctor, but that mental health reaches everyone at any given moment, at any point in time. We all struggle with mental health issues. So with that being said, I'm ready to take the cover off. We're going to get curious. We're going to be open-minded. We're going to be vulnerable. We're going to show and experience and give our expressions, and we're going to show empathy for each other while respecting the process. So Brother Ned, go ahead and take the lead on where you want to go with the conversation.
Well, the first, and thank you. And thank you for that introduction and that overview, because it is absolutely imperative that our listeners know that even though tonight we're looking to talk about how it impacts men of color in particular, but how it impacts all of us, our communities at large are impacted by mental health and mental illness. And so that by no means is this specific to only one population. It is a brushstroke that covers each and every one of us. And so with that, my first conversation part, I really wanted to take a moment because I know your passion for this, Brother Jerome, but I really want you to take a moment to talk to us why this is so passionate for you and why you've invested the 100+ hours into getting certifications, and why did you find this to be such an important piece for you to do?
Well, let's go back to mental health affecting us all. It's like physical health. Physical health affects us all. Right. The difference with mental health is that we often only think about the mental illness as opposed to also including, like we do physical fitness, mental wellness. So if we could expand that even further, what I'd like to have as a takeaway is how we maintain our mental wellness and how we restore our mental wellness when we get out of balance and out of touch.
Wow. Yeah, that's very good. That's very good. Share a little bit more about the out of balance part of that, Brother Jerome, because I think that sometimes I understand that sometimes there's this importance to keep that yin and yang, that, two dualities in sync. But share a little bit about what do you mean by that, by the balance?
Well, I think our current predicament with the pandemic has given us an opportunity for us all to feel that we can be sometimes overwhelmed by the circumstances of life. We get into certain routines. A lot of us just like to keep ourselves so busy that we're numb, that we actually don't feel what's going on around us because we constantly have ourselves involved in something that simply distracts us from being able to focus on the things that truly matter.
Yeah.
And our physical health matters, how we eat. And what I've learned is not only does what I eat affect me physically, it affects me mentally. There are certain brain chemicals that rely on certain things, certain vitamins and minerals to be in your body at a proper level in order for it to stimulate the production of proper brain chemicals to keep you in balance. And we'll talk about more of that later. But basically, we have to maintain it's self-care. Let's just call it self-care. We have to spend time on ourselves. If you ask me, a lot of people run around and say men think that they're God's gift to the world. No, but I am God's gift to me. And my stewardship responsibility begins with me. If I can't take care of what God gave me, which is me, You know, he has given me this vessel to work through that he might be able to work through. It is my responsibility then to maintain this vessel both physically and mentally as just a primary tribute to God.
Right.
Very true.
So I want to ask a question in that, and you don't have to answer it right now, but the question is not that bad, Ned. The question,
Yeah, okay.
And we do have another question that's in the chat from Janine, but my question really has to do with how does our inability to know what we were created for affect our mental health, right? Or why we were created affect our mental health? Again, you don't have to answer that right now, but
that takes a whole show by itself.
You could give us a teaser. I'm just throwing that out there.
I can only answer that personally.
Right.
My experience in being diagnosed with a mental illness and being treated for that mental illness and later helping others to be treated for those mental illnesses as a counselor and as a support specialist helped me find out and revealed to me what my purpose is. Because it is effortless. Once you have been on that dark side, once you understand, let me, I'm going to pull the cover all the way off.
Please do.
You're looking at an individual that should not be on this show. Because when I was 31, and then 3 times after that, I attempted to take my life because it had gotten just that bad.
Wow.
You know, I've had a wonderful life. I've been blessed. I've accomplished an awful lot. You would think that some prep school kid that came out of a local prep school and went on, and he's a black man with a degree, and I had my own business when I was 27, and I sold that business when I was 39, and really probably could have been financially free, if you will, if I had paid my house off. That's the only bill I had, but I was using that to write off my office. You know, so you would think that I would have been just fine. But when mental illness comes knocking, first of all, some of it is biological. You know, some of it we inherit. You know, and then some of it is stimulated, even though it's sitting there dormant. Sometimes it is stimulated and triggered into a full-blown mental illness by events that happen in our lives. And that's when you feel like you got run over by the trucks and you keep getting up and you keep getting hit again. You know, well, at some point it gets hard to get up. And it got really hard to get up to the point that sometimes I just wanted to lay there and let the trucks keep running over me, you know, but God.
Amen.
Yeah. I know that feeling. That's all too well. The question that's in the chat says, how do we maintain our mental wellness? Is there any suggestions? The pandemic has lifted the covers off of many concerns, mental health being one of the concerns.
Yeah, this pandemic has done all sorts of things. One of the things that people immediately noticed, you know, law enforcement immediately noticed, is that the domestic violence calls went through the roof.
Yeah.
Because we sometimes in our own personal space, our own home environments aren't always healthy. And it's okay when we can just, our day-to-day activities take us out of that environment. And we just come back and we sleep and we eat and we get up and we go out again. So we're not really interacting, you know, on a fundamental level with those people that we even live with.
Right.
But now we have to live with them. And sometimes being in close quarters with people who we have otherwise been able to avoid, even though we claim we love them, becomes difficult.
Right.
And we start to see things that probably were always there and we chose to not see. And they start seeing things about us that they don't exactly know how to tell us about.
Right.
You know, because they do love us and they do care about us. But if you really love me, you need to be a mirror for me. I've never seen myself at any time. In fact, right now, I'm just looking at my reflection. I'm looking at an image of me, but you see me. You know how I impact you with my behavior, with my attitudes, you know, how my emotions impact other people. Right. And somehow you need to have someone in your life that can reflect that back to you.
That's good.
In such a way that you can accept it. It has to be constructive, but at the same time, I need to listen constructively.
Wow,
that's good.
Two solid points. That the active listening is something that I think will save most relationships when folks are willing to listen as well as actively listen as well as communicate what we are feeling and dealing with.
People need to feel heard. They need to somehow feel understood, and they need to feel safe. None of that's going to happen until I have a safe space, which this program provides. And I thank you so much for this, because it provides a safe space for brothers to meet and say, hey, first of all, me too. Okay. Me too, a different way. Me too. Yes, I was affected by mental illness. You know, yes, I have been exposed and affected to addiction. You know, so we're able to say me too, but the other side of that, and this is a little tagline from NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, I am not alone.
That's right.
You know, so people need to know you are not alone. There are organizations galore that we don't investigate because, first of all, we hide in the shadows. You know, most of us that are African American, especially African American men, we hide in the shadows. We don't let anybody see our anguish. You know, so we don't look for help, because to look for help means that I need help.
Right. I got to imply that something's wrong with me.
And it implies that I have a weakness.
Yeah.
And the stigma around a weakness is tremendous, and it can make people, it leads immediately to shame.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of things you've already discussed on this program, and I think shame was one of them. And that really got my attention. You're digging into some really important things, because we all carry that heavy mantle of shame around with us. And until we begin to deal with the sources, the root causes of some of that shame, you know, which is normally fear of something, you know, but those root causes of some of that shame, it will repeat itself throughout our lives.
Yeah. I think that's a strong point, Brother Jerome, because I think the shame of mental illness and mental health has always plagued our communities in particular. I think, you know, you and I were discussing just on evening last about how, you know, I think most of us can relate to that family member that we've kind of locked away in the back room, or that we never allowed folks to know even existed in the family because of he doesn't act like the rest of us, or she doesn't perform to a level. He's special. She's special. And that type of shame is what has caused us not to get the help, particularly early help. Because there are so many times where
preventative help.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's preventative. We could have perhaps prevented. Stress management is huge.
Yeah.
What Black person in America today does not experience a tremendous amount of stress?
Yeah.
What Black man gets up and shaves and look in that mirror and just prays and hopes to God that he comes back home to his family on a daily basis?
Every day.
You know, so there is an inordinate amount of stress being African American in America. It just is, you know, and we need to learn how to prevent some of that and how to manage some of that. And at the same time, we need to understand what resilience is, what true resilience is. And we use escapes as resilience right now. I mean, we escape behind all sorts of substances and habits and things, you know, in order to
give a few examples of that, Brother Jerome.
Oh my goodness!
Because I think you might have that was a strong moment that I think went over some heads. There was some people who heard that was like, "What is he?" Break that one down for us a little bit. What do you mean by the things that we escape to?
Well, the I guess perhaps the most obvious one would be substance abuse.
Okay.
Whether we be addicted to alcohol, addicted to illicit drugs, addicted to sex, addicted to purchasing things. I mean, just some people are just shopaholics. They feel bad, they go shopping. You know, addicted to people. Some people just gotta please everyone, and it's an addiction. People pleasing is an addiction.
Yeah,
you know. So at some point, it begins to chip away at who I really am, and my self-esteem starts to suffer. And I just
Mm-hmm.
don't feel that I'm good enough, just as I am.
So I'm going to ask you a question, Brother Jerome. When
Yes.
you say addicted to, because some people feel like, oh, I'm not addicted to it because I can manage it.
I'm in
I have
control.
control over it because I can get up in the morning and I can stop it whenever I want to. I just think about some people who smoke weed, right? I hear it all the time, right? Oh, I'm not addicted to this thing. Did we lose him? Oh no, we lost him.
Uh-oh.
Hopefully he'll come back
He'll
in.
pop in. But yeah.
We want to thank the people who are joining us this afternoon. We want to thank them, and we just ask you to like and share. This is a really great topic. This is one topic that we believe that everyone should be hearing. As again, we said that it doesn't just impact one group, one set of people, but that it impacts everybody. And so we're asking everyone to like and to share. We want to invite you to the table, and we want you to be in conversation with us. So if you have questions and comments, please feel free to ask. Please feel free to share. But I was asking Brother Jerome, you there with us? You back with us now?
I'm back. We must be talking about something important.
Yeah, this is a real important thing, especially when I hit on that weed thing, because you know that touched some lines across political lines too, right?
Well, that's the very first indication that there might be an addiction is denial. So when you tell me that you can stop anytime, that's fine. I'm going to accept that. That is your reality. I can stop anytime I want. So my follow-up question as a counselor is probably going to be, how long did you last time you stopped? How long did it take you before you picked up last time you stopped? Well, I really didn't ever try to stop. I just know I can stop if I want to. You know, we have to begin to confront, and I don't mean aggressively confront, but to be able to push the issue just a little bit to help someone identify the fact that, you know, maybe I do that a little bit too much. You know, what last time you picked up, what happened immediately before you felt the need to pick up? Because most of us don't know our trigger.
The trigger.
But what if I say my addiction doesn't hurt anybody, right? What does me shopping, how does that hurt you? I love my shoes. How is that hurting me? How is that hurting somebody else?
Well, if you're independently wealthy and can buy all the red bottoms you want, it probably doesn't. However, most of us aren't. So it begins to deprive your family members of the resource.
Uh-oh. I think we lost him again.
Might be having an internet connection issue, but this is good. And I think that the devil always seems to want to get in the midst of what's going good for the people, right?
Always trying to get in there. But that's all right. He has no place.
That's right. That's right. And we're going to continue the conversation, however that might go. Brother Jerome, you hitting the head?
I don't know. This could possibly be on my end, but you know, technology is great when it works.
We're going to keep it. We're going to keep going.
That's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I panicked a little bit, so I don't remember my last statement.
You were referring to the shoe shopping of System League.
And how we deprive our family of resources. You know, yes, it helps. It may not hurt anyone directly, you know, but you chose to buy a pair of shoes when maybe another family member, a child, needed something else, or a item that might enhance their learning experience at school. You know, but not only do we buy our shoes, but then we go get the Jordans, and I don't have anything against Jordans. But if you're, you know, if I got brand new Jordans on my feet and ball tires on my car,
there's a problem.
And something's probably not properly aligned.
That's right.
Something's out of balance.
That's good. That's good.
Yep. That's definitely information worth sharing. Jerome, do me a favor, and I know I'm like Sister Emily. This is really good conversation. I'm loving the meat that's on the table tonight. Let's talk a little bit about the perception or the misconceptions that sometimes plague our community when it comes to mental health and mental illness. Like, what are some of the things, like having been an educator, I know that, you and I had this conversation in regards to how there is this kind of this broad stroke of how African American young boys are treated differently, and then are pipelined because of.
A couple different ways. I'm going to start on the adulting first, and some myths about Black people. That we're superhuman, that we are so strong because of our history that we can go through just about anything, and our women are the strongest of all. That is a complete misconception. And we are human just like anyone else. We hurt just like anyone else. We have problems just like anyone else. We get overwhelmed just like anyone else. But we are not willing to show any weakness because of the stigma. That really starts all the way back. I'm going to segue all the way back into early childhood. I most recently have joined a local school system as a teacher's aide for special education. And what I immediately noticed is that most of the students in those programs are young boys of color. And sometimes people have just given up hope. It's one of those, well, he's no good now and he's probably never going to be any good, or he's acting out now. And by the time he's in the third grade, they're going to be constructing a prison cell for him.
Right.
And I looked up some statistics last night, and I wish I remembered the name of the study, but there is actually a study that looks at test scores at the end of the third grade. And based on that level of performance, they know approximately how many jail cells they're going to need within the near future. That's if it's that scientific. And then one, it's probably contrived and planned. And two, we need to intervene. We need to intervene with our young people. I didn't understand that end, so I'm learning that end of how is it that I'm involved down in Wilmington, Delaware. I happen to be the president of Kairos Torch Prison Ministries, where we are forging a relationship with the Ferris School for Boys to take the good news into the prison and help these young men change their way. We have a three-day planned weekend to do that type of thing. And Kairos Prison Ministries International happens to be one of the largest, most respected prison ministries in the world because it's international.
Okay.
But anyway, that facility at one point when I was introduced to this opportunity had a young man in there that was 9 years old.
Wow.
What is it that a 9-year-old child, now we're talking third, fourth grade.
Yeah.
What is it that a 9-year-old child can do to have them taken away from their family and incarcerated, detained? So the mental illness piece that you were talking about, is there an undiagnosed issue here? Well, he's just bad and he's always going to be bad. Well, yeah, we just pretty much cursed him at that particular point. It says thou shalt not kill, and you just assassinated that young boy with your mouth. So we have to be careful about how we talk about and to our children. And of course, we have to, on the other end, remember that we're still human. Black people are human too. And we have to allow ourselves to be human.
Yeah. Oh, that was good. And so one of the things that you were talking about was that school to prison pipeline piece, right? And what I wanted to bring special attention to was the fact that we often want to punish mental illness. And so instead of us looking at it from a different perspective of grace, medical attention, healing, and the thing that is needed to be able to get a person to actually function in a capacity whereby they are healthy in mind, body, and spirit, we are often times, and I want to say this, parents, we do this a lot, especially in the Black community. We're going to whoop the bed out of them, right? And unfortunately, you can't whoop the mental out of somebody. I know there are some mamas out here that say different, but it's not making them better. it's causing things to become worse, and the anger is taken out in a different capacity, in a different way. And so we want to be able to really address and talk about what it means to properly handle, deal with, diagnose, see, relate to, understand, and interpret what mental health is, and especially amongst our community. Either one of you guys want to take a stab
I would
at
love to take a stab, Ned. I've been dominating, and I shouldn't be doing that.
Nope,
so
go. Listen, I will have my opportunity. You please share.
I want to talk about cultural competency.
Okay.
Because we always blame that on them, that they don't understand us. Therefore, we ain't no sense in going to talk to them because they won't be able to relate. My question tonight is, are we culturally competent enough ourselves to recognize the symptoms of mental illness within our homes and our families and our friends? Are we culturally competent enough to understand that that whole whooping thing came from a dark history of our experience here in this country? So now we're doing it. In fact, I believe the overseers kind of look like me anyway. So
that's true.
now we're doing it to ourselves, and especially to young boys. I mean, we were doing it to young boys then. Are we culturally competent enough to understand and to accept the fact that we have to break the cycle, this intergenerational cycle of not recognizing mental illness and punishing mental illness to the point that we make up such a large population of the incarcerated people in this country, which, by the way, has more incarcerated people than any other country in the world.
Other country. That's right.
That's good.
Yeah. I can't even do anything other than echo that. I think that is one of the biggest pieces that disturbs me when we're looking at helping a generation progress and move forward, that we do more damage to ourselves by holding on to some of those old stigmas and situations that were put on us, that we don't grow and we don't take the time to become aware, to assess and take what I've always called a mirror moment to determine, okay, here's what's wrong and I see it. How do I address it? How do I deal with it? How do I move forward from it? As a culture, as a society, we don't do enough of that. I don't think we do. To your point earlier, that's us always looking to the outside saying it's because they don't, or they won't, or they haven't. Duly noted, but now what? I had an uncle who used to always say, you spilt the milk. Now what? Do we sit there and watch it go rotten and smell up the whole house? Or do you clean it up and figure out, how we go buy some more milk? Let's get to the point where we're really starting to look at self-healing in our communities. And it really becomes from awareness.
As I get up now and I start shaving, I start to realize I look more and more like my father. And Ned, last evening, we had the opportunity to comment, but we're ready to pass the torch. And I've been challenging myself, and that's why I'm back in education, elementary school education. One, because we are underrepresented there. And two, I don't have anybody to pass the torch to.
Wow.
Which makes me ask myself, did I do my job? Have we done our job for those of us who have some insight in this area? Have we done the job that we need to do so that we can pass the torch to someone? And the torch in this instance is better understanding of mental illness in our community, how to prevent it, how to get it connected to the proper services so it can be treated, and then how to have that person emerge from mental health treatment. I lost 10 years of my life. There on my Social Security report, there's 10 straight years of zeros because I was dealing with a mental illness. So that will impact me forever. So how do we recover from it? When I had a 10-year gap in my work history and decided I wanted to go back to work, I went to the National Alliance of Mental Illness and started to volunteer for them so that I can begin to get something back on my resume among people who understood or should understand, and they did, what I was going through.
Good.
And that led to certifications, etc., that I had to find a way to re-engage. because it's not that the mental illness went away. It's just that I learned enough about it. We got to learn about it so that we're not afraid of it, so that we can do the right things to begin to manage it. We manage our diabetes. We manage our hypertension. How is mental illness? How is bipolar diagnosis any different? Than a diabetes diagnosis? And if I also take the proper medications at the proper time on a continuous basis, I can live as vibrant a life as anyone else.
That's right.
Most of the time, most people can be helped to recover in mental illness. Will everyone recover? No. And a lot of times it's because they waited so late and the situation has gotten so dire and severe that it's very difficult now to get that person onto a regimen that they're going to follow, first of all, and that's going to be effective secondly.
Yeah, that's good. So there were two things that I want to draw connection to. One of them was when you said earlier about things being inherited. And the other was just now when you said, who do I pass the torch to? I recalled earlier today, I was on Facebook, something popped up on my screen. Somebody had sent out some type of message, and it said something to the effect of, if you was a hood nigga and your son grew up to be a hood nigga, then you failed as a father. And for me, when I hear what you're saying right now about who do I pass the torch to, and these things have been inherited, when I think about even my own children, fathers suffering from mental health issues that went undiagnosed, and that as they got older, they did not want to have diagnosed, actually presented themselves in our children. And my children, I'm like, where did this come from? I don't know, what is this? Like, why are they acting like this? But I had to recognize that this was a trait that was already existent, and that if I didn't do what needed to be done for it, that they could be on the other end, right? And so those things where we would oftentimes clash at, like, no, this is something that needs to be addressed. We need to go and get them tested or something like that. Oftentimes when we hear that word tested, we think that that means, again, something's wrong with me. I'm not perfect. I'm inadequate. And they're gonna place me somewhere because I'm crazy, and that's not what it means, and that's not what it's about. And so I think this evening, even kind of addressing the ends of how we view that preventative care, and how we view the ways in which we should go about treatments and things like that. I think that that's something that's important too.
Yeah, absolutely. You did a wonderful job just being able to frame that issue. I wish we had more time, but we don't. So we'll try to keep it as succinct as possible.
We could always do a part two.
What came to mind? Well, I'd love to come back. But what came to mind when you were speaking was, first of all, the intergenerational issue. I don't judge someone's choice that they made in their life unless I understand the choices they had. Right. Because I'm not in position to judge, first of all, at all. But when you only had bad and worse choices, and you chose the bad choice, that was probably the best choice.
That was the best.
Okay. So I don't, that's the first thing. Now, when it comes down to mental illness, however, through just educating ourselves, we have better choices than what we're currently choosing. Right now, we're currently sticking our head in the sand and ignoring it unless the police become involved. And that's unfortunately the way a lot of people of color enter any type of treatment is through an interaction with the police, including myself. I have been handcuffed and shackled and thrown into the back of a police car and then shuffled from one department to another until I finally landed in some mental health treatment. So it is humiliating to come back home from that. Now you go through some acute treatment and you come back home to see those same neighbors who watch you get thrown in the back of the police car. You know, when had I, first of all, not been in denial, because I was in denial from the first attempt at age 31 up until 53. I began to get consistent treatment at age 53. I decided, I had been on meds many times before, but I felt better, so I stopped taking them, you know, which is very, very common. You know, but I finally decided that if I got to be on these meds for the rest of my life in order to re-engage and become and to live in my purpose, you know, then I'll do that. I'll do that. And I think along with age comes a little bit of wisdom about some of these things. But when you stop taking your meds 3 times, as I did, and each time led to a suicide attempt, that you ought to be able to figure out that there's a pattern here.
Yeah.
And I don't want to continue that pattern. So there's certain things that I have to do in order to be able to present myself as I am right now. Because it's been bad. You know, in 2014, when I came back into the state of New Jersey from Virginia, I weighed 105 pounds. Wow. I looked like I was about 70 years old. And the reason I came back is my sister sent me a bus ticket down there because she called me. She sent the police to find me. And they went to my last known address. And she says, Jerome, I haven't heard from you in over a year. How are you doing? And I said, sis, I'm just sitting here waiting to die.
Wow. Wow.
What I heard was it takes time, right? That it takes time. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And we need to be gracious to ourselves, but honest.
We have to catch the spiral.
Yeah.
There are indications that things are not going well that we simply shrug off.
Yep.
You know, you better man.
You just can't do that.
For us, it's called man up. You better man up, bro. You know, well, some things you can't man yourself up over. You know, and that's the misconception that we have to begin. We have to start listening to people, give them the safe space first to let us know what's going on with them for real. You know, keep it 100 and then listen, not to respond, but to understand.
Yeah.
And then take that information. And if you don't understand, then you need to study or seek professional assistance so that you do have a better understanding. And then you might need to advocate on behalf of that individual in order to convince them that I really do care. Do you know how many times I heard that I want to help you until it was really time to help me?
Yeah.
So and anyone who is trying to rid themselves of an addiction that might be listening tonight, how many times have you been told, I'm there for you and I'm going to help you. I'm with you all the way. And the first time you relapse, they're gone. And they're telling you that you were nothing but a junkie anyway.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the kind of conversation we have to learn not to have in order to support those people who are struggling for recovery, because there are people out there trying to recover.
Right.
And then there are people who won't admit that there's a problem in the first place because I can quit anytime I want to.
Yeah. So one of the things I heard you mention, Brother Jerome, was a number of times is connecting to those resources, being able to look for those support systems that are out there, and there are lots of them out there. One of the questions that rung in my head as we were doing this conversation, because it's always relevant for me, is how does the church play a role in that support system? Do they have a responsibility to support, help, and get folks the help or the connect or helping them connect? How do you view that? What's your thoughts on the church's responsibility or role in helping folks through mental health and mental illness?
This is probably overused, but the church is a hospital. Not only do we take our sin-sick souls to our place of worship, we also take our emotions, our behaviors, and our thoughts. And that's that cycle of mental illness. So normally the symptoms are going to show up somewhere in altered thinking, misaligned thinking,
right,
uncontrollable emotions like rage. We're we allow that one. That's the one that gets you in trouble.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
quite a few times.
And because that rage leads to a behavior that ends up damaging someone's property or injuring someone, or maybe even injuring ourselves, or simply threatening to injure someone. So now you're coming into a treatment center from the law enforcement side. There was a better way. There was a front door. We
Right.
have to start using the front door to mental health treatment by first recognizing those signs, those behaviors, those thought patterns that sometimes are hereditary. We're taught how to problem solve from a very young age, and we do it the same way maybe our parents did it. But we have to decide that if they didn't beat the devil out of me, and they tried, believe me, then chances are I'm not going to be able to beat the devil out of mine either.
Right.
So maybe we're going about this the wrong way. Maybe that type of corporal punishment isn't the right way. And I know you're going to get a lot of feedback about this one. What do you mean you don't spank your children? I didn't say that. I didn't say there's not times when you have to get your children's attention physically, but you don't flog your children expecting them to be able to change their behavior just because you unleash the wrath of God on them.
Right.
So there's a front door, and we have to learn how to use the front door. It's called, let's educate ourselves. Let's not let it be true that if you want to hide something from a black person, you put it in a book. Let's not let that be true. I keep referring to NAMI. First of all, the National Alliance for Mental Illness has a section that researches and specializes treatment and modalities for African Americans and for Asians and for Latinos because of the cultural component. Okay, and some of the cultural habits on how people respond to mental illness, the treatment modalities aren't always exactly the same. Sometimes they have to be tweaked to understand how is shame interpreted in that culture? What is that person going through? My self-stigma kept me from admitting that I needed help because I was so afraid. It was fear. I was so afraid. I was a business person. I was known in the community, and it was in the newspaper ultimately that my mental illness had led to 2 years worth of homelessness for me. So you're talking to somebody who's already lived under the bridge. There's things that I've gone through in my life that have allowed me to come and participate openly and honestly in this program. But I'm not here to tell horror stories because everybody has their own. But what I am here to do is to show you what recovery looks like, and you're looking at it. So it can happen. I had given up multiple times. Wow. But I wasn't allowed to give up because I was being prepared for this program.
So I hear you saying, Brother Jerome, that there is hope.
Absolutely, there's hope.
That it's not hopeless.
Absolutely, it is not hopeless.
Amen.
Hopelessness is a learned phenomenon in most cases. You learn hopelessness. You learn helplessness. I was always pretty stubborn, so that worked in my favor.
That's good. Well, I am really happy, and I don't think this conversation is over. And so I would like to invite you back to continue this conversation because this is a much needed conversation. I think that as we delve a little bit deeper into some of those indicators and some of those things by which we as pillars in the communities, such as churches and different people who say they're advocating for families and or grassroots organizations who say that they are close to people within the community. I think that this is a great conversation to get real about what it is and holding people accountable to helping educate ourselves on mental health and our own mental health care. And I think that people really want to know, how do I get better? How do I overcome all of the stuff that I'm feeling? How do I deal with my anxiety and my depression? I've been diagnosed with bipolarism. How do I really manage that? And what does that really mean, right? I think that these conversations need to be had so that we can help lead people on the journey, on a path towards getting better, to finding their healing. And so I thank you for taking the cover off and being transparent about your own experience. Again, what I know to be true
I'm only 1 in 5. I'm only 1 in 5. 1 in 5 people walking around right next to us every day have a diagnosable mental illness. And I'd like to, if I could just indulge upon you, may I show a title of a book on your program that might help people?
Yes, absolutely.
It's called, if I can get it in front of the camera properly.
What is it called?
You Need Help.
You Need Help.
You Need Help.
It's a book called You Need Help. It is a step-by-step plan to convince a loved one to get counseling. It's by Mark S. Conrad, MD. It is in the NAMI library. NAMI has a free library in Hamilton, on White Horse Avenue. There's a free mental health library there. They don't charge you anything, and you can keep the book as long as you want to. They would like for you to bring it back at some point, but you can keep that book. So when I first got diagnosed and didn't understand what was going on with me, I had to go get a For Dummies book from NAMI, and it was Bipolar for Dummies. And it began to help me understand what was going on with me and what I could do about it.
That's good.
I had to admit, though, that I was a dummy when it came back to understanding my own diagnosis. And I could not afford to be a dummy about my own diagnosis. So I had to read the For Dummies book in order to get
to change your status,
guidance. And to change my status from being a dummy. So thank God I don't need the dummy book anymore. But it was one of the best books I ever read about bipolar and how you can treat it. Thank you so much for inviting me. I hope I didn't dominate. And yes, you're right. No. This is a salty and a big issue. And it takes time to kind of dig through it. So I really appreciate the fact that you've allowed me to pull the covers back on your show.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Well, everybody, we are at our time. Again, we want to thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you back in the throne room next week. And so please like and share. If you need to reach out to us, please feel free to visit royaltynetwork.net, or you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, all them, Instagram, everywhere you can get attached to someone. We are there. But you are important to us, and we want to continue to create spaces like these where we can come in and have these conversations. Don't forget, it's not just about us taking the cover off, but it's about you taking the cover off. Your journey towards healing, it takes time. Be gracious to yourself. Until then, we love you guys, and we'll see you next week. Have a great day.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
Not alone. That's
not alone at all.
Not alone.